everybody? Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at a big chunk of work by the artist Michael Sweater and his collaborators. This is somebody that Brandon Graham turned me on to. I've been following Michael's stuff, especially his Everything Sucks storyline that he's been posting on Instagram, and been waiting to buy his work, but just, I hadn't got around to it because I knew there was a lot of it. Finally got a hold of all of his stuff and really enjoyed it. One of the things that I really enjoy is there's some variety in here. So there's things like Puppy Night and The Wizard, which are pretty good for kids' books. They're fun little adventure properties. And then there's more slice of life stuff that's more adult, and but it's all funny. It's all humorous stuff. And I like that variety within his work. Michael Sweater also works with a lot of collaborators, especially on the fantasy stuff. But there's a consistency throughout where I believe that when he's writing, he's probably also doing layouts, because there's a consistency to the character quality, even if the inking kind of changes per piece. So I just want to go through and give a look at all of this stuff, some of it more briefly and some of it a little bit more in depth. And you can just decide, which stuff's interesting to you. I think it's all good. And there's a lot of really good stuff for kids as well in here. I got this all from Silver Sprocket, which seems to be the company, either his company or the company he's publishing through. So we got a bunch of cool stickers with that. There's, even in the more slice of life stuff, there's a real sense of like fun, trying to keep things fun, skateboarding and stickers and things like that. I keeping with that sense of fun, I like this map here. This is, typical fantasy adventure stuff, but there's funny names, Lake Leg Scratch. And then I really like right here, Some Nerd Lives Here. That comes in place later when they meet the wizard and they say, oh, the wizards are just, they're not scary. They're just nerds who live in towers and read books. So I believe that's what that's a reference to. And here we'll just go ahead and jump right into the story. You get right out the gate this awesome, big, like Where's Waldo-y type of scene. Not that dense, but it reminds me a lot of like Sergio Aragonés type of thing, where it's just all kinds of characters packed in. Andrew McLean's Headlopper. The kind of story structures remind me of early Cerebus, because early Cerebus is just playing on those standard fantasy, go find a jewel in a tower type of structures. Adventure Time, and then I think the biggest reference is probably Louis Trondheim's Dungeon. It has the kind of vibe and humor and just sensibility of the dungeon stories overall. But it's really fun to go through all of and look at all of what's going on, all the characters, the wizard books here. There's all these funny paintings in the back. You get Snoopy in there because this is obviously a world with a lot of dogs in there. And then you get the main character, Puppy Night, and his little sidekick here. They're going to go find some treasure. And you can see this is kind of like the Steven Universe Adventure Time vibes there in the eyes. And so they're going to go on this adventure. It's a pretty short book. This one I'm not going to get into because it's a pretty simple fantasy structure. We get the treasure and it's not the treasure, and there's some haunting going on. Really fun. Again, Steven Universe Adventure Time type of expressions there. So that's what this story is. It would be really, really great for kids. I would keep it on the shelf for kids. Really fun. And then in the back you have this black and white section. I particularly like this strip here, where they just do all these vampire puns. So you get Nosferatu. I've been named the Bloodhound, Vlad the Imp Howler. Call me Count Wagula. Are you terrified? I'm all bite, no bark. So that's the kind of fun humor that, like I said, would be appropriate for kids and was really enjoyable. A lot of times with kids' books, I'm like, this is obviously meant for kids, but it's so well done in here. And the art by Michael Sweater and Jose Cruz is very good as well. So that's Puppy Night. That was really enjoyable. In the same vein is The Wizard, which is a collaboration with Rachel Dukes. Rachel Dukes cleans Michael Sweater's art up a little bit. It gets a little more clean line and animation-y looking. And this is called The Potion of Dreams. As with the Puppy Night, it seems like there could be multiple volumes of this. Another little questing thing, and they're always in the front, like encouraging young artists to start creating their own comics today. I think that's really great as well. That's great for kids. I really like this opening sequence here, where the main character says, "We have been given a world where all of the adventures have been finished, all of the real quests completed, a shallow replica of a greater age." I feel like that's something that we're all feeling right now, or at least I'm feeling that right now, that we're kind of culture's been on a loop since the 90s, and that's built into the story in an interesting way. So even in these kids books here, I think Michael Sweater's writing is able to touch on some real issues, and I appreciate that quite a bit. Here's another thing that I felt was true. Nobody will help a person just because they demand something. You need to explain where you're coming from as a person. And that's another instance of building in some real life lessons for kids into the books, and helpful lessons for kids. So it's not just a fun adventure story, but it's speaking to kids and what they need to know now in the world as it is now. This scene was really funny to me, because I did this as a kid to my dad. We went camping or we went hunting at one time, and apparently he tells me, I don't remember this, but apparently we were in the car and I was being that kid, where do bugs even come from? Do bugs like or hate it when it snows? I bet bugs hate when people step on them. Am I right or what? And just that kind of kid thing, trying to figure out the world, trying to project yourself into someone else's mind. The one thing I remember my dad saying, I asked, is like, I wanted to know how excited my dad would be if he could shoot a deer as big as an elephant, and they called me Mr. Hypothetical. So there's that really perceptive writing about kids. I feel like Michael Sweater has kept inside of himself as a kid enough that he can still remember that state. That's something I really value, and I tried to do for a long time. And the older I get, the closer I got to my 40s, the harder that was. The more I feel disconnected from today's youth, and I don't understand it. But he brings me back to that in his writing in these fantasy books. So I really appreciate that as well. And then in all of his books, you get these big, like I said, kind of Sergio Aragona's Where's Waldo, just big scenes with all kinds of stuff all over the place. And that's why I was saying also, you could see the similarity. Even this is Rachel Dukes, and the other one was Josue Cruz. This still looks like a Michael Sweater book to me. It still has his character designs. It still has the same type of shots you would expect. This is a gigantic store, and I like that you can go buy knives, stickers. Of course, you got to have stickers. He really likes stickers, obviously. Gold, days since last nap, 12. You can spend time in these. They're deceptively simple because of the cartooning. And just flipping through here, just to give you a sense of some of the other art. Again, the story, I don't need to break it down. It's just a simple adventure story. You break in, you have a fight with the main wizard in the castle, and everything goes from there. But it does seem like this will be an ongoing thing. This one's out from Oni. This was the only one that wasn't from Silver Sprocket, I think. Then we get to what I think are some more personal works, or things that have been on his Instagram that are a little bit more adult and a little bit more geared towards real world type of humor. Still, everything's like these anthropomorphized cartoon characters. This is Please Destroy the Internet and Please Destroy My Enemies, which just seems like two collections of little one I don't want to say one page, one post shorts that you would put on Instagram. So I just picked out some of the ones that I like. Here's a political comic, and you just have everyone protesting and a happy person, and then they yell at him and they turn him angry. That seems to be the state that the world's in right now, expressed very clearly in 4 panels. Here's one. It's me, Mike's brain, just going to try and have an idea. Whoops, and spills it all. Oh no, I always ruin everything. And then the letters rearranged to spell cat farts. And then Please Destroy My Enemies. Same thing, it just seems like a year later, probably. Here's a character created. Origami crane, here we go. Fold in half like so. This is the tricky part. Reverse outside fold, just a few more folds. A beautiful gray fox, that's not right. Nothing ever goes the way I planned. And Michael Sweater's able to get like some really deep kind of life wisdom into these cartoons, I think. Like this one, having, the character's not creating what he set out to create, but he's creating all of these amazing things anyways, and is unable to see that. I think that's another really good life lesson for kids, another good life lesson for my students, to learn to see where you're succeeding even in failures, and learn from those things. So I really appreciate that about what he's doing with his book. Then this book, This Must Be the Place, a Please Keep Warm collection, and these two, the first 2 issues, I believe, of Everything Sucks,
are the pieces that I really really like. The kids ones are fun and I enjoyed them, and the little shorts, the little 1 day shorts type of thing, those are fun. I enjoy those. They're more hit or miss, whether you pull something out of those or not. But these books are more slice of life. I know there's still these cartoony characters, but they're more adult in worldview. It seems like they're not autobiographical, but a little more autobiographical. They're more focused on character as well, building characters, and they're Michael Sweater drawing himself. So this feels like really, really his statement on the world. The other ones, the kids' book stuff, seems like he's doing products that he know will be saleable, and he's putting his outlook on the world into those. But these ones are the really personal ones, and so I enjoy that quite a bit more. It starts out right away with a story that I really, really like that introduces the characters, and it just speaks to me in terms of like why I have a hard time being around kids. But you have the character Stan here, who's Uncle Stan, and his niece Clover. And as far as I can tell throughout the story, she's living with her uncle, and I'm not sure how the other characters are related, but they're having to take care of her, and so she's like interrupting his work with all this silly conversation about what do you think is better, dinosaurs or witches. And then he goes and hands her off to one of the roommates, Catman, and Catman's trying to work, but he sticks it with her, and she's still stuck on this dinosaurs or witches. And then eventually this character here comes in. I'm gonna blank on her name. Oh, Flower comes in, and I'm not sure. They all look like they're related, but I'm not sure. It's definitely not Stan's wife. I don't know if it's her sister or what. I didn't pick up on that. But then she gets passed off with Clover as the kid, and is going to try and take her outside to do yoga and get her away from the video games. And it cycles back around to where Flower passes Clover off to Uncle Stan again. And that's, I don't know, that whole structure is funny. I think it's a really great way to introduce the four main characters of the book. Yeah, just speak to what it's like to have kids around in a really fun way. Another thing I appreciate about Michael Sweater is he's obviously very deeply into heavy metal and all of the subgenres. So I, as a heavy metal fan myself, extreme music fan myself, I enjoy picking out all the little references he gets. Right here he talks about zine about eating out of the trash and a bluegrass thrash demo. And I would really, really like to hear a bluegrass thrash. Those two things would go very well together. There's a band called Zeal and Ardor that does kind of like chain gang blues chants metal that has become very popular, and it sounds really amazing. But I think with the speed of bluegrass thrash would be great. So hopefully, I know Michael Sweater from watching his Instagram plays music. Hopefully, Michael Sweater, if you see this video, you're working on that bluegrass thrash. Right here, Stan is telling Clover that he used to love skateboarding, but he quit once he realized that he couldn't. He was never going to be skilled enough to be a professional. And Clover says, so I should only do things if I can be a professional at them. And I think that's really wise. That's another one of those instances of Michael Sweater giving good life lessons. Like, not everything that you do, you have to do at a professional level. Like, you should do things for enjoyment, or you could really stymie yourself. I mean, personally, I always like to try and push whatever I'm doing to where I could be a professional, but that doesn't mean I'm going to make a job out of it. And I think that's a wise observation. This is one of these kind of metalhead jokes that I'm not sure how many people would get. But Catman asks Stan, hey, what are you listening to? And he says, just Burzum. So good. And then you look at it and he's listening to Under Oath. I think that's funny, that like guilt over the sellout band or whatever, but I actually prefer Under Oath to Burzum. They're both good bands though, so that's just kind of a funny thing in there. Under Oath is pretty fun. Here's another metal reference I caught. I think this is called Snake the Band. There's a band called Horse the Band that played what was Nintendo core. It was like heavy metal, hardcore, really fast math rock that sounded like. Nintendo music a little bit, so I think that's probably a reference to Horse the Band having Snake the Band. So I found that fun. But that's what this story is about. It's Stan who's always trying to write his novel and not succeeding, and then Clover being the curious kid. You have Catman, who seems to be the one more financially holding it down, and then Flower, who seems like the depressed sister or aunt who's like, trying to get her life together. And then you have this other like metal character that shows up and some other friends. And they're just living their life, and it's just got that kind of humor embedded in it. So really, really highly recommend this book for adults. This one's compelling for adults. One thing I've noticed about all of Michael Sweater's stuff is I don't know how these are originally released, but he seems to hit a punchline either like every half of a page or by the end of every page, even though there's an ongoing story. So it seems like these are intended to be cartoon strips, but they also read really well like stories, and there's a cadence that he's worked into there that's really, really clever. And that's in the Please Keep Warm stuff and this Everything Sucks stuff. He has that same cadence. And I've seen a lot of this stuff. The reason Brandon put me onto Michael's work, and I was following the Everything Sucks stuff as it was coming out on Instagram. It has that 4 or 5 panels at a time works, but there's also that storyline that builds up. So he understands both venues. He understands the Instagram venue, and he understands the venue of the book, and is able to really make that work. And I find that to be an extremely impressive writing skill that all of the old cartoon strip artists had to have that were telling ongoing stories. And Michael Sweater's really picked up that tradition, I think, and run with it well. You can see in Everything Sucks, this is his most adult book. There's a lot of weed smoking going on. These are kind of like schlubby, crappy characters living their schlubby, crappy life, and he's developing that. But it has the same type of outlook and the same type of humor. And it says that Please Keep Warm is part of the Everything Sucks universe. And there's another Please Keep Warm book here. This must be the place. Oh, that's the one I have. I took the dust jacket off. That's what it is. So apparently Please Keep Warm is part of this, but I don't think I saw the characters cross over yet. So I'll be curious to see how that happens, because apparently there's going to be 4 more issues of this, I think. I like this scene here because this is something I've experienced. The hamburger joint that they want to go to is temporarily closed because someone had shat on the floor in there, but they really want to get their hamburgers, so they try to walk through the drive-thru and they won't let them order in the car. I remember actually trying that. There was some trip, probably we were going to camp over the summer, and there was a bunch of kids on a bus, and they let us loose into the parking lot to go get fast food on the way there to buy lunch. And since so many kids went inside, me and my friends thought we would get our food faster if we went through the drive-thru. And I think we were actually able to convince them to let us order it, but they were pretty resistant, like it is here. So that's the kind of things that are going on in this book. They get stoned, they try and get a hamburger. There's someone's pooped on the floor. They try and go get the hamburger from the outside. It's that kind of story structure, but really enjoyable. Again, same kind of humor and jokes in all of his stuff. And here they're smoking weed out of this big candy cane thing that they stole off of someone's lawn. So that's what this kind of book is. But again, a lot of observations about the world. And then in the back, you have what looks like older Everything Sucks, maybe, just because of the style looks a little grimier. There's more black and more of that strange. I always associate it with punk rock art for some reason, but like black in the middle of characters for weird reasons and things like that. So and they have this Japanese structure of the panels going down that way. Those seem older that are being collected. This is apparently a reprint of Everything Sucks #1, where it's on like just regular paper. I think the original issue probably came out with like all of the hollow foils and stuff like that on it, because this says inside like, hey, we can't reprint everything. It's too expensive to keep them in print in this style. So if you want to get them in these like harder, like firmer covers with the foils and stuff, you got to get them while they're coming out. And then again, this like idea of, even though this is a more adult book, he's trying to keep it really fun. I think it also kind of reminds me of Scotty Young's stuff, like I Hate Fairyland and that, where it's like really fun, like kind of kids' perspective on the world, but it can be a little bit more adult. But again, you see this interest in fun stuff like stickers, skateboarding and stickers and things like this. This is Everything Sucks, All Cats Go to Hell, which I can also vibe with. It's basically a long story about why cats are awful. I like that it starts with this funny anthropomorph character that's being drawn here. And these cats, they have this neighbor that's feeding the cats, and so the cats are starting to take over, and they eventually go have a confrontation with the lady, and it just explains why cats suck, because cats do suck. I really enjoy how he's figured out that this frog character that this character used to date, when she goes over to his house, he's sitting there like a frog. It's those little details that take even a fairly simple cartoony style and make it like obviously really well thought out and a lot of time put into it. You know, it's not like a hacking out a book style. And here you see this lady that's bringing all these cats to the neighborhood, and they ask her to knock it off, and she basically tells them to fuck off. And then the cats basically lock them outside of their own house. They resolve the situation, and at the end, he still says, "Never mind, I hate cats." And yeah, I vibe with that. I hate myself some cats too. And then in the back here, we get some more like of these what appear to me to be older strips. We get a preview of the next issue, and then we get actual insert with stickers in here. And here you can put this bumper sticker on your car. Proud parent of a beautiful cat who pisses on absolutely fucking everything. Really enjoy this. Really enjoy all of Michael Sweater's work. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for Everything Sucks, the further issues of that from Silver Sprocket, and I definitely recommend you all do as well, because if you get them as they're coming out, then you get these nice cool versions with the fancy stuff and the extra stickers and all that. And if you don't, I'm sure this will eventually be collected. They're being reprinted in these like cheaper formats as well, so you can still get a hold of all of this stuff. But yeah, thank you, Brandon, so much for turning me on to Michael Sweater, and I'm glad I finally was able to get around to looking at his work. I think it's really great. Like I said, I'm impressed by the diversity, the ability to make marketable kids books, the ability to do something like this that's a little bit more adult and personal, but that there's a consistency in tone across them no matter what. There's a consistency in approach, and there's always these little moments of like wisdom within it. I think what separates this from a lot of this like schlubby kids sitting around being like awful people kind of comics, Simon Hanselman's work is the stuff that I think of that relates to this, but it's such a barrier to me because the characters just, or Matt Fury too, they're just such a barrier because they're just leaning into the awful people. I feel like Michael Sweater has a sweetness behind him and a wisdom behind him that shows up in a lot of those little quotes that I showed, that makes this stuff a very, very different kind of thing and really extremely enjoyable for me. So hopefully you can all support this, and hopefully you will enjoy it as well. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and want to support us, there's two ways you can do that. The first is through our Patreon. We have couple different tiers of interaction there. The second tier comes with our exclusive Prane Day story, as well as previews of Sean and my work and some voting rights and things like that. Any of the money that we get from the channel helps us buy the books that we review, so we just take that money and turn it right back into the community, into other creators' pockets. And then if you want to support Living the Line, the best thing to do is to purchase some of the books that Sean puts out through Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of those projects now. House on Fire by Matt Battaglia is a just gorgeous book where Matt's kind of making an emotional response to the years of COVID and wrapping that into a sci-fi dystopian future that really the sci-fi dystopian's backgrounded, and you're focused on the emotional journey of two characters in a really beautiful way. And then that's enhanced by Matt's like really awesome, loose, kind of Paul Popish dry brush work. And then Sean and Matt have worked to get this second kind of orange spot color
in there that's going to look really, really beautiful, and it has allowed Matt to use his dry brush technique to add tone to the thing too. So with Sean's production technique, this is going to be a gorgeous book with a lot of heart.
Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.